Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center, Pflugerville, Greater Pflugerville. And what we're doing today is we're finishing up on a series of the Lord's Prayer. And we've been going through the phrases of the Lord's Prayer and looking at it in a practical way. Unity is known as the practical version of Christianity because we believe that Jesus was teaching us the mystical secrets of the universe in order for us to attain the spiritual awareness that he had. Isn't that an interesting idea? In other words, you are the same as he is or was. So here we are on this earth, operating in the world around us. And the last phrase in the Lord's Prayer is, "For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever." So what does that mean? That's God's world. So everything around us is of God. Now, there's a catch to that. Everybody ready for this? This is called the catch-22. We, as children of God, as divinity expressing, have been given free choice. And that's been pretty well proven over the years. And we've had the opportunity to make our own life the way we believe it should be. Anybody agree we kind of messed it up? Now, some people think life is perfect, but I'm starting to come to the conclusion that we have an imperfect world around us. And if you stop and think about the idea that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, and the quantum physics idea that as we think, we create, the idea behind it is there's 7 billion people out there creating their world the way they believe it to be. And unfortunately, most of them are what we call a victim mentality. In other words, somebody has done this to me, and here I am because you did it to me. So I'm angry, I'm upset, and you did it to me, and it's all outside of me rather than inside of me. And that's the great message that Jesus was trying to share. And so it gets very, very interesting. So for thine is the kingdom, everything in the world is of God, and the glory and the power. So all power, all glory, and all energy is in God, or God is energy. And as far as we know, the language of God is love. Now, this it's amazing to me how things start fitting together. Anybody ever notice when you're really working on something, all of a sudden answers start coming in? And I had a conversation with Bruce on Friday. And Bruce, out of nowhere, asked me about the Tower of Babel. Those of you who don't know that story, it's in Genesis 11, and it's a very, very interesting story, and I'd like to share it with you, and then bring it into what Jesus said. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to go into the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. For those of you who don't know what that is, there's an idea that all the stories in the Bible are stories of mankind and our growth through a spiritual environment. So every story in the Bible is a metaphysical interpretation of a spiritual idea. So the Tower of Babel is one of those, and this is the dictionary that defines that. And there's a couple key things in here I'd like to share with you. So it says, let's see, when man thinks in outer or purely mental and psychic ways that they can comprehend and contact the divine, confusion sets in. Okay? Now, that's rather complicated. I'll read it out loud. When man or human thinks that in outer or purely mental or psychic ways, in other words, figuring things out. Anybody familiar with figuring things out? We spend more mental energy figuring things out. And actually, the more educated we are, the more problem we have. I can say that. And it's amazing. I'm not kidding about it, but anyway. So, it purely meant that can comprehend and contact the divine. Confusion is always the outcome. So the Tower of Babel and confusion are synonymous in that conversation. Now, the story is really fascinating. So that's the Tower of Babel, and that's the idea behind it. But I thought I'd go into it and give you a little bit of conversation about the words used. And it's in Genesis 11. Please look it up if you choose to. I'm reading out of the Lamsa Bible. which is back to the original Aramaic, which is the original language. And in here, chapter 11, and it came to pass. Now, these are the descendants of Noah, and the first verse says that everybody was speaking the same language. And then it says, and it came to pass, a men journeyed from the east. They found a plain in the land of Shinar, which is desert area. Now, east is metaphorically towards spiritual understanding or inner silence. Okay? So they were seeking, metaphysically, understanding. And then they found this place and they decided to stop and settle there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks, okay, and build them with fire. In other words, they took bricks. Now stop and think about it. Desert. They took the dirt, put water with it, and made bricks, and then fired the bricks. Now what is that a metaphor for? Anybody understand hardened thoughts? In other words, when you stop and build something, you build an edifice based upon the beliefs and ideas that you have. Okay, and then you fire them into bricks so that they're hardened. Sound familiar? Anybody familiar with religions or political parties or cultures, etc., that have hardened into their beliefs? Then it goes on and says, and they said to one another, come, let us make bricks. And they had bricks for stones and etc., etc. So they built the towers. And they built a tower that they hoped would reach God. And it also says in there that people might notice them. Okay, now this is biblical. Okay, and of course the Bible's always true. But the idea behind it is, from a metaphorical standpoint, a group of people stopped, started building an edifice upon their ideas. They became deeply, deeply ingrained, and they kept building it higher and higher and higher. Now, in today's world, everybody talks about organizations building towers and then hiding behind the towers and throwing bricks at each other. So if you understand that metaphor, it's being said here that man, usins, started building towers of our beliefs, and we have become so solidified in those beliefs, we can't see anybody else's beliefs. Okay, sound familiar? Now, Psalms says, I'm going to check my notes now, but Psalm said that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, which is Psalm 24. What does that say? The earth is God's. Now, there's a subtle difference in the Bible when it uses Lord or God, and Lord is more the law of attraction. Unity believes that the word law can be translated, Lord can be translated as the law. And the law is whatever you think about, you create, law of attraction. So if you become solidified in your ideas and you believe you're right and everybody else is wrong, what kind of society are you creating? Okay, you're creating a society of silos or towers, and everybody has their own little tower, hiding behind it and throwing bricks at each other. Sound familiar? Hello? It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. But that's what we've done. And of course we're justified because you know them over there. And that's why I go back to Pogo's famous cartoon, I have met the enemy and them is us. Because the enemy is always something that we can't believe in, we can't trust. Now, unfortunately, the human nature was always looking for problems. Okay, we've been trained. Remember, we are creatures of our conditioning. And so our conditioning has taken us to a point that we are looking for the downsides. So we're always looking for a problem. So if we believe something, but we see something little niche. In other words, I don't know, what Robert says is true. However, did you see the way his hair is? Maybe, So we make up stories, and we're always looking for a problem rather than the solution. And the solution is it gets clearer and clearer and clearer. Jesus, again, the metaphor of Jesus speaking is, these things I do, ye shall do, and even greater things is what he said. So, and that's why I say this over and over again, Do you believe in Jesus? Yes, I believe in Jesus, and I believe what he said. So I believe that I am divine, you are divine, each one of us is an expression of divinity, and we're all working out our divinity in our own way because that's how we've been trained to work it out. Now, the Garden of Eden, if we go back to the original state that's described in the Garden of Eden, and I believe the Garden of Eden is a metaphor, if you will, but it's a metaphor for perfection, joy, abundance, happiness. In other words, everything they needed was taken care of. So our basic nature is programmed inside the primordial, the way, way back original intent was to live in the Garden of Eden. And through our thinking over thousands of generations, we have corrupted that story. So how do we recreate the story? Well, we can't figure it out with the world's conversation, right there? Because the world's conversation is full of brick towers of people's beliefs and superstitions. And we're trying to base what we're trying to do, how we're trying to live, based upon the world's conversation. Now, and I look at that, and I've been looking at what are we going to do in the church? How are we going to bring in ideas? What kind of classes do we hold? What do we bring in? And there's several different levels. The first level is the physical level. And on the physical level, we really need help to be spiritually in tune. Because when you're sick, you're not doing well, agree? Mm-hmm. So there's a certain amount of personal health that needs to be taken care of. But on the physical manifestation, which comes from our beliefs, we also need to live in an environment of energy. Now, remember, everything in the universe is energy at a rate of vibration. And Bruce is at a different rate of vibration than the microphone, but they're all at different rates of vibration. So if that's true, then I need to be in a comfortable vibration, which there's certain things I can do in my house to make it more comfortable. So we're going to do more and more of that. Madeline's already agreed to bring it into her intuition class, the next one we're going to hold. And that's things like feng shui and some of those things. And then you start looking at the next level, which is the emotional level, the feeling level. And on the emotional feeling level, our emotions are part of what we do. We are emotional beings. Now, the question is, where do emotions come from? And most of the time, they've been learned. Psychologists have pretty well determined that. So how do I deal with it on the emotional level? How do I work with that? Now, you see, there have been all kinds of experts on the physical level. I mean, you get nutritionists, you get all kinds of people out there telling you that their way you're going to be enlightened if you eat their stuff. Okay, and then on the next level, if you hold your feet in a certain way and sit a certain way for meditation, you got it handled. Okay, so everybody's got their answers. The emotional level, all you have to do is scream. Anybody ever been through scream therapy? Or I used to we beat pillows at home. Okay, so there's all these stories about how to become enlightened. Okay, then then you've got to reach the mental level, okay, or the mind level, and that's also the metaphysical level, which means if I say something often enough, I can change the subconscious programming and produce what I'm changing in my life, which is valid. However, people have made towers out of it and made it like God. So even that has its detractions, because sooner or later it doesn't work, because we are human. Now, you ready for this? We live in an imperfect world. I'm sorry, I wish I could say that. And the problem, I believe, is we're trying to change that world around us rather than change us into the person that lives in the perfect world. Do you hear it? Mm-hmm. How do you change the world the way it is with 7 billion people pumping out negativity, if you will? Excuse me. There's what? We're 1/10 of 1% here, so we're positive. See, even we have built towers thinking, okay, we got it made. Yeah. Because we're all this work we're doing, and we think we're there, but we're not. But that next level, after the metaphysical and spiritual level, but then there's another higher level, which we call, or I call, the Christ level. And that's returning to the soul that you are. Originally were the Christ. And the Christ is not Jesus' last name. The Christ is that place within you where God resides. So the perfect pattern, the Christ, that connection is there. Now the problem becomes, how do I reconnect with it? And that's what we address. And that's what we're going to be working on, is the Christ path. And that takes redoing. I spent some time this morning, this might sound crazy, but I was looking at this sound barrier. And I found some interesting things. You might verify some of this. But the idea behind it is that an airplane, once it reaches the sound barrier, things change. In other words, the physical characteristics that the plane operates under, for going through the wind, etc., changes because sound waves change everything. So our physical world is totally different beyond the sound barrier than it is sitting here. And to me, it's a wonderful metaphor for once we get through all this physical and emotional and mental and psychological stuff, and we do the work to overcome it, the final hurdle is returning to God, which is literally letting go of the rest of it. Now, you're saying, when we say let go and let God, what does that mean? It means give it all up. There is no difference between us. We're all children of God. Each one of us is here to do a divine job, whatever that job is. It's like the orchestra. And we need clarinets, and we need violins, and we need, pianos. We need all kinds of different instruments. And just because you play the violin doesn't make you any better than somebody who plays the clarinet, if I can use that metaphor. So it's getting beyond all the stuff and all the politics. You ready for that one? And all the cultural issues and all the racial issues and all the issues that occur, and get back to oneness. And how do we get back to oneness? The great secret, are you ready? Be still and know that I am God. You look at Jesus, he kept saying, go into your closet, close the door, okay? Seek me in secret and I will reward you openly. Over and over again, he kept giving us the secrets to a happy life. And a happy life is letting go of everything I think is true. And that's confronting. But I was really thinking about it because they actually had movies of this, of an airplane when it gets to the sound barrier, starts shuddering. And all of a sudden, boom, it's into it. Very, very silent environment. It just shifts. Okay, so that's the promise Jesus is saying. The kingdom of heaven is within. It's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And all these promises that we kind of slough off. And the truth is, you're a child of God, I'm a child of God. We're here to work together and support each other and use the common language called love to support each other rather than tear each other down. So, and that last phrase I used is very, very important because we're so critical. And it's that critical energy that actually keeps us from being one with the Father. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for the flowers. It's a beautiful, beautiful thought. We have been here 5 years. And you let us in the door 5 years ago. A lot has happened in 5 years. The property down there is getting better and better. And we're getting closer and closer to building that building. But the main thing is that building is already there in the ethers. And the ethers are your beliefs and my beliefs. And we are here together to make it a better world. And to make it a better world, we have to start loving and appreciating each other rather than finding fault in each other. So I love you dearly. You're children of God. I'm really honored to be part of you and your energy. And thank you so much for that. I love you. And next week, we're going to go on to a new subject.